Hi there, I'm Vincent Boss and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing this happens when your ex doesn't think you care. I provide audio coaching for breakup recovery, trying to get an ex back, attracting someone new, and life coaching. Visit www.dateme.tips for more details. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast, and today we are discussing this happens when your ex doesn't think you care. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, you might wonder what would happen if it was less obvious that you wanted them back. In today's podcast, I'm discussing 3 things that happen when your ex doesn't think you care. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is loneliness becomes possible. Now when I say loneliness becomes possible, I'm not speaking about you the dumpee. No, I'm speaking about your ex the dumper. So at the time of a breakup, when your ex the dumper ended your connection, they moved forward on their own path and you felt left behind. You felt like they didn't care about you. You felt rejected. You felt that they did not value you in a way that you wish they did. And to some degree, some of these thoughts and feelings you have, unfortunately, are accurate in regards of your ex-dumper deciding that they didn't feel that you two together work well enough right now in a relationship. So whether or not they care for you to some degree, that could be debated. But what is honestly the truth is, sadly, your ex-dumper doesn't believe that you two connect in a romantic sense anymore, and certainly right now. At that stage, you as a dumpee are likely to feel lonely. However, your ex-dumper is not going to be going through those feelings, even if they don't have a rebound or somebody to monkey branch to. So not all dumpers will move to a brand new connection straight away. Although dumpees might think of this in a worst case scenario type concept, not all dumpers have a new person that they're moving to. That's just the facts. Sadly, sometimes they do, but often they don't. But even if a dumper doesn't have somebody new to move into a relationship with, it doesn't mean that they're going to be feeling lonely, even though technically speaking, they're alone. They're single. The fact is, they don't feel alone in a loneliness sense because they know that you as a dumpee want them. They know that you as a dumpee desire them. They know that you as a dumpee crave them. So therefore they think in their subconscious, if not their conscious mind, that they could have you back in a relationship if they wanted to, if they needed to. Therefore they're not going to feel lonely. They're not going to be feeling the loneliness that you as a dumpee are feeling, because you right now feel rejected. They don't feel rejected. They're living their life the way they want to, on the path they chose. Maybe there's somebody else in the picture, often there isn't, but they're not going to be lonely. Now, if we think of today's podcast title, This Happens When Your Ex Doesn't Think You Care, this is when we flip the script. This is when we change things up. Because as I said, at the time of a breakup, your ex-dumper is confident in believing that you want them. They made a decision to end the relationship, but you didn't want it to end. But if this mindset changes because they believe for whatever reason this comes to them that you no longer care, well, this is when loneliness becomes possible. Because for the first time, you are not acting as their safety net. You're not acting as their fallback option. You're not their plan B. If they don't find what they're quote-unquote looking for right now, then they can't just move towards you, because in their mind now, they believe that you've gone. They believe that you don't care about them anymore. Now, how you go about this could be to differing degrees and variance, but I would suggest as a dumpee, in most instances, you should never be contacting your ex again unless they contact you first. If you behave in this way, then you straight away showcase that you're not chasing your ex. You're not becoming needy. You're not showing your desperation. You're not putting them on that pedestal, and you're not showing them that you care in an obvious way. Now, this doesn't mean that you don't care, But if you're not showing it in a way which is obvious, your expert-dumper is going to be wondering whether you do at all. Now this is the paradox of a breakup. Your expert-dumper doesn't want you to chase them, but they somewhat expect you to. And if you don't, this is when they're going to start thinking to themselves, maybe my dumpee doesn't care for me anymore. Maybe they're not bothered. Maybe they found somebody better than me. How could this be? Do they not care at all? If your expert-dumper starts to have these types of thoughts due to the fact that you're not chasing them, then this is going to enable the possibility of loneliness to one day hit them. It might not hit them straight away. It might be months down the line, but loneliness becomes possible once you remove the safety net. Once you are no longer their fallback option, they could become lonely. Now, even though it might not be nice to say that you want anybody to feel lonely, if we're thinking about trying to get an ex back, we need them to be feeling a certain level of loneliness, because if they don't, they're never going to try, turn around and actually want to reconnect with you. They're not going to be putting in the work if they feel you're always pushing them on that pedestal. So, although it might not sound the nicest thing to say, I want my dumper to feel lonely, in reality, you need them to feel that way, because otherwise they're not going to put in the work of trying to get you back. We want them to be feeling that they need to be doing the chasing. They need to reach out to you. They need to put in that hard work to reconnect something that they decided to break. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast. Please like this video if you're watching on YouTube, and subscribe to the channel. And point number 2 is mistakes you made hold less value. So again, we're talking about this happens when your ex doesn't think you care. And point number 2 is mistakes that you made now will hold less value in your dumper's mind. And the reason for this is connected to point number 1. All of a sudden, your expert-dumper is now starting to feel a potential loneliness. All of a sudden, your expert-dumper doesn't have you as their safety net. Therefore, we're changing things up, we're flipping that script. Your expert-dumper is now having to look back towards you with a longing and with a missing you, just as maybe you did with them previously. Now, if they get to a stage where they're really starting to feel that pull, maybe their life hasn't gone the way that they hoped, they're now starting to reconsider their decision. When they think back about you, when they consider the past, they're going to be thinking of you in a brighter light. And this could also be referenced as mistakes you made in the past are no longer going to be felt as deeply by your dumper. Now, let's not get things muddled up here. They're not going to forget things that you did. They're not going to be believing things happened which didn't, or didn't which did. But instead, they're just going to hold less value. So maybe something which really troubled your dumper at the time, maybe something really annoyed them, caused them frustration, something which wasn't the worst thing in the world, but just annoyed them to some degree, that isn't going to be something they're going to be thinking about and referencing in their mind at this stage. Because instead, they're going to be thinking of you in a brighter, more positive light. Because when they don't believe you care for them, they're going to start worrying and thinking, well, if they don't care about me, then maybe that means they're actually a better person than me, because they're not putting me on that pedestal, and therefore they must be putting somebody else on a pedestal, or maybe they're on the pedestal themselves and somebody else is placing them on it. If I'm not part of a picture, if they're not bothered, if they're not worried, if they're not thinking about me, then I can't hold as much value as I once did. And if I don't hold as much value as I once did to them, then maybe they're the higher value individual and I'm the lower value individual. And if you can achieve this goal, dumpees, of really flipping how your expert-dumper views not just you but themselves, you stand an excellent opportunity of them imagining you in such a positive light that they start to push you onto that theoretical pedestal, whether they mean to or not. You're changing the value system. You're changing the power dynamic. And if it starts to take place, your expert-dumper will not be seeing you for the errors that you potentially made, but instead, all of the great times that you had together are going to be amplified. They're going to see you as somebody that they really, really miss having in their life because of all the amazing things they can now conjure up in their mind about you, rather than the annoyances that they may have used to think about. They're going to be pushed downwards and downwards, and all the great things that you did and have about you are going to be raised higher and higher. You really have changed the power dynamic. At the time of a breakup, it's sad to say, but your ex, the dumper, would have had a more powerful position than you, the dumpee. But if you now can change their mindset by, in essence, rejecting them, by not doing what they expect you to do, which is to chase, which is to crave, which is to desire them, if you're not doing this, then they're going to be thinking you must be powerful, you must be valuable, and therefore they can't be. All of this is going to be going off in their subconscious mind. It doesn't mean they're consciously putting this together. It just means that they will have a feeling all of a sudden that you're a great person and they can't quite believe why they ended your relationship. Now, of course, there is no 100% guaranteed way to get your ex back. Nothing works 100% of the time and nothing fails 100% of the time. But if you live your life the right way, if you stop hassling your ex, if you increase your own value, then your ex-dumper is going to be more likely to feel potential loneliness. Your ex-dumper is going to be more likely to think of you in a better position than they did maybe even when you were together. These things can certainly take place if you do your part, and doing your part means living your life the right way. Now, if you would like advice and support about how to try and increase the chance of one day getting your ex back, then you may want to consider my audio coaching service, where me and you can speak one-on-one about your unique specific situation. Go to my website www.dateme.tips for more information about how I can become your coach and your teammate via my audio coaching service. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast about this happens when your ex doesn't think you care. And point number 3 is you become more attractive to them. So when we combine points numbers 1 and 2, what we see at this stage is your ex-dumper is going to see you as an attractive, dateable option. You become more attractive to them because you have taken away your interest. And if you take away your interest, they will start to want to put their interest into you. This is something I describe by saying there is nothing more attractive than rejection. And if we go right back to the breakup, when you were dumped, you felt rejected, and you would have likely seen your dumper in a more positive, attractive light than you even did in the relationship. You know, this is one of the bizarre things that dumpees need to try and get their mind around, is that when they crave their dumper, they're probably finding them more attractive than when they're actually together in a relationship. Just think about this for a moment, dumpees. I challenge you to consider how you view your ex-dumper right now and compare that to how you viewed them back in your relationship. And I honestly believe that most of you will agree that you actually find them more attractive now than back then. You crave them now than back then. And maybe this is showcased by potentially in your relationship, maybe you were complacent. And you were complacent because you just didn't really feel any real desire because you were not overly attracted to them or their behavior, or you didn't feel fearful that they would ever leave you. You just were complacent because you felt you could be. But now you've lost them, now you feel rejected, you feel this overwhelming desire of they are amazing. Now, this is what could happen but the other way around in your ex-dumper's mind if they feel rejected. And they feel rejected by you not chasing them. And this again is where it is a bit of a paradox, because if you were to chase your ex-dumper, they would likely become frustrated, annoyed, and not want to be with you in a relationship. But if you remove your interest, if you avoid chasing them in any way, shape or form, you are in essence rejecting them, even though it's not in the traditional sense. You're rejecting them in a subconscious sense because you're not doing what they expect you to do. And if you behave in this way, and if you do reject them in a subconscious sense, they are definitely going to be more likely to see you as an attractive option. Now, of course, we need your ex-dumper to see you not just as a more attractive option, but as a dateable individual once more. Now, whether or not they get to that point will depend on if you live your life the right way and whether or not you have the opportunity to communicate with your ex-dumper reaching out to you and you moving through the communication stage. There are more elements that need to come into play and click together before you get your ex back, but taking one step at a time, you need your ex to feel you as a more attractive option in their mind, and behaving in the appropriate way is absolutely the best way to achieve this. And this is why all of this happens when your ex doesn't think that you care. If you believe that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.